Should the President of the United States invoke the Insurrection Act? I guess Trevor Loudon. Here's what President Trump just said the other day. Listen to this.
Over a weekend.
What? The Insurrection Act? Under what conditions or terms would you?
Well, I'd do it if it was necessary. So far, it hasn't been necessary, but we have an Insurrection Act for a reason. If I had to enact it, I'd do that. If people were being killed and courts were holding us up, or governors or mayors were holding us up, sure, I'd do that. I mean, I want to make sure that people aren't killed. We have to make sure that our cities are safe.
Yeah, we have to make sure our cities are safe. What is the first function of government, folks? Security and protection. That's really it. Romans 13. If you do what is right, you should have no fear of the government. But if you do what is wrong, you should fear the government because they have the power of the sword to put you to death, capital punishment. The purpose of government is to reward the righteous, make a stable and just society so that the other two institutions outlined by God, family and church, can do theirs. And they're to be complementary of each other. The church is not to be the government is not to be the church. They're complementary roles. They're to back each other up. Now, I have friends of mine that are freaking out over the Insurrection Act. How many of them have actually ever read the Insurrection Act? I went and looked up a few facts about it. The Insurrection Act of 1807 is the U.S. federal law that empowers the President of the United States to nationally deploy the U.S. military and to federalize the National Guard units of the individual states in specific circumstances, such as the suppression of civil disorder, of insurrection, and of armed rebellion against the federal government of the U.S. The Insurrection Act provides a statutory exception to posse comitatus that limits the president's deploying the U.S. military to enforce either civil law or criminal law within the United States. After invoking and before exercising the powers authorized under the Insurrection Act, it requires the publication of a presidential proclamation whereby the U.S. president formally orders the dispersion of people committing civil unrest or armed rebellion. The Defense Department guidelines define Homeland Defense as a constitutional exception to the restrictions of the Posse Comitatus Act. Therefore, the political, military, and police measures necessary to protect national security from external threats are exceptions to the restrictions of the Act. Now, we have had 8 years under Obama for the enemies to prepare the battlefield. We had 4 years under Joe Biden to prepare the battlefield. We know we have massive enemies, foreign and domestic, the red-green axis. Red, again, being the Marxist, the green being the Islamist. I repeat that for the new viewers because we're adding lots of new viewers. Now, if you know that China and Iran, Hezbollah, that's Iran, Hamas, they're here. We have the DNI report, which is what we've been saying for years. We're going to have a massive terrorist attack in the U.S. We were saying that in 2008 when we were interviewing John Gilduck about Beslan, the former Soviet Union, and the killing of over 300 people there in a school, many children. And saying in our interviews with him in 2008 many times that the terrorists want to carry out such attacks in the U.S. Hit soft targets like churches. We warned about churches. We warned about synagogues. Was it 2017? We did a seminar here in our studio. We brought in experts on how to secure your family, how to secure your church, active shooter situations. Some people in the audience were like, well, why do you need to do this? Why do you need to do that kind of seminar? The very next day was the largest church shooting in American history. I'm not bragging, but we are very good at what we do. We're very good at studying the trends, the philosophies, the ideas, where they're going and being in front of them. We've done it for 35 years. Go read my books, you'll see it. It's not bragging. It's like your plumber saying, I'm a good plumber. Well, that's bragging. Give me a bad plumber. No, you want your plumber to say, I'm very good at my skill. I'm very good at my craft. I'm very good at my trade. You want to hire me because I will do a good job for you. Well, you listen to us because we are good at our craft, at our trade. And there is a big terrorist attack coming. And it's going to be enemies foreign and domestic. Just today, Annie Cyrus, while I was on the radio today and television, sent me a picture of what just went up in Iran. A big 7. Here we are on the second anniversary of the October 7th, 2023 terrorist attacks. And Iran put this up. They put this out. And it's in multiple languages. Farsi, Arabic, Hebrew. What does it say? What's coming will be greater than the storm. D&I, as you know, 3 weeks ago, this week, put out that report. Now, I guess agreeing with what we've been saying for several years. There's a terrorist attack coming. They'll hit soft targets. They'll go after schools, hospitals. They will confuse the living daylights out of the first responders. They're going to disrupt communications, send false alerts, confuse them all over the place as to where the real targets are. And how many Americans are going to take this seriously? How many of the anti-Semites out there are going to blame this on the Jews? A lot of people are about to look really stupid when we have our own October 7th event. And they've spent all their time blaming the Jews for everything when Qatar is pumping $40 billion into some of our institutions, education-wise, to brainwash these kids. And as Alan Dershowitz said on my broadcast several times, many of these young people will turn into terrorists. So at what point does the president use an Insurrection Act? I think the Insurrection Act, if I remember correctly, was used in 1992 during the LA riots. I'm pretty sure that's the case. Let me look that up. Yes. It was used in 1989 and 1992. 1989 after Hurricane Hugo, and then 1992 LA riots, yeah. But I hear a lot of people panicking over the Insurrection Act. It's been used before, and the Republic went on. But what are you supposed to do when many of your police departments have been taken over by city councils, county commissions, mayors that are Marxist, that are Islamist? What are you supposed to do? If I were the president, what do you think I would do to deal with this? And we have what is virtually now insurrection. I have a video where apparently in Portland, the police are coaching the Antifa folks on how to avoid getting arrested, what to do. Listen to this. We'll have to bleep some of this, I know, but here, listen to this.
It's okay. All right.
Get them the fuck out of here. You don't want to these sort of felonies.
Real quick.
All right, I'm going to stop there because that's where the language gets bad. But that guy, if you watch the whole thing, is telling him what to do. What are we supposed to do when your police departments are as corrupt as the criminals? Joining me now is Trevor Loudon. Trevor, welcome back to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us.
Oh, always a pleasure, Brannon. Thanks for having me on.
What do you know about this video out of Portland where apparently their police are giving the Antifa guys advice on what to do to avoid the federal agents?
Well, it doesn't surprise me because in the blue cities, this kind of thing's been going on for a long time. And I think you raise a point that we have cities in America that are basically in a state of insurrection against the federal government. You know, you'd probably I'd put LA in that category. I'd put Portland, Oregon, probably Chicago, Illinois, and a few others in that category now the cities will do everything they can to defy the federal government and harbor enemies of the federal government. So what is that if that's not insurrection?
Yeah, what is it but insurrection? What is it? That's exactly what it is. How do you feel about the Insurrection Act? Do you think President Trump should use it?
I think absolutely when necessary. I think it could have, look, put it this way, if it had been used when Ferguson, Missouri was burnt to the ground in 2014, we wouldn't have had the Black Lives Matter riots of 2020. If it had been used in the Black Lives Matter riots, which were instigated by pro-Chinese communists, we probably wouldn't have had an election stolen. You know, there are many consequences for allowing bad guys to run rampant on our streets. Like I know, for instance, there's a very little used bit of legislation that could stop a lot of this too, is the fact that if you cross a state line in America to participate in a riot, that's a 5-year jail felony. You imagine had that been used during the Ferguson riots when they brought 10,000 people from out of the town to burn that city down, or it had been used in the Black Lives Matter riots or the recent LA riots. There are plenty of tools there, and the Insurrection Act should absolutely be on the table if these blue cities and their Antifa thugs and their Black Lives Matter thugs and their Hezbollah and Hamas friends start getting violent. Absolutely.
All right. I think, in fact, we have another comment by President Trump on the Insurrection Act. Here it is. Listen to this, guys.
Portland for a second. Are you planning to invoke the Insurrection Act? And that would be, a very long-standing law that's been on the books.
Yeah, well, it's been invoked before, as you know. If you look at Chicago's a great city where there's a lot of crime. And if the governor can't do the job, we'll do the job. It's all very simple. They probably had 50 murders in Chicago over the last 5, 6, 7 months. Many people were shot. And then the governor gets up and he says, well, we can handle it. They can't handle it. They don't know what they're doing. The mayor is grossly incompetent. He's at a 4% approval rating in Chicago. He's at a 4%, lowest approval rating, lower than even de Blasio had, which is hard to believe in New York. I thought de Blasio would always maintain that record, but the Chicago guy is even lower. So I think that we want safe cities. If you look at D.C., you would right now, Mark, you could go out, take your family out to dinner, you could walk right down the middle of the street. There is no crime in D.C. When I got here, this place was a raging hellhole where people would come from Canada, people would come from other places and end up getting shot. Nobody's being shot. The National Guard's been unbelievable. I mean, they are strong, tough guys. You know.
Yep. Why do you think so many people on the right are so upset that Trump's becoming a tyrant and a dictator? You know, I don't remember any of these folks saying this about George H. when he used it in 89 or 90. Do you?
It's just, we got too many wimps out there.
We do have an awful lot of armchair experts, don't we?
Yeah. Look, Trump's not a dictator. He's not a tyrant. He could have used the Insurrection Act a long time ago. He could have used it during the riots of 2017.
I think he could have used it in 2020 and stayed in office if he wanted to.
Exactly. So if anything, I'd say Trump has been overly reluctant to use the powers to go after the enemies of the Republic. I think if you're going to fault him, it's been for his reticence more than his zeal. So, look, I think it's got to be on the table. We are coming into a period, I believe the next year will be the most violent, or potentially the most violent America has seen since the Civil War. And I don't say that lightly. We have Chinese military-age nationals here ready to go. We have Hamas, we have Hezbollah, we have Antifa, we have at least 100,000 Marxists and communists who have nothing more, who are openly talking about it. Now is the time for revolution. We have all of these forces, all of whom who hate America, all primed and ready to go. We have the John Brown gun clubs who've been training in arms for several years now, ready for the revolution. We know that many of these people are armed. We know that they have foreign backing. It's the president's duty to use the organs of the state to suppress outright insurrection. And we are building to insurrection right now. So, go for it, President Trump, if you feel it's needed, if you feel it's getting out of hand, because you're not going to get any help from Gavin Newsom in California. You're not going to get any help from Pritzker in Illinois. But the people of Illinois deserve American protection. The people of California deserve American protection. If their own corrupt Democrats won't give them protection, it's up to the federal government. That's the duty of the federal government.
Here's 1962, Ole Miss University, about an hour and 10 minutes from where I'm sitting right now. John F. Kennedy used it in 1962.
Yeah, that was when to enforce segregation in the university. And that was a far less serious situation than we've seen in recent times. And
people say, oh, well, that's setting the standard. Wait till the Democrats come back. Well, you know what? And they'll use it against us. Well, they're going to use it against us regardless. But we're constitutionalists. We're law abiders. So are we
Yeah.
not to enforce the deal with the communist and the Islamist in our midst because they might use it against patriots? If they use it against patriots, then they're clearly abusing it. So you're saying we're not to use it and clean up the people who are here for fear that the folks that are here might use it against us when they come to power? All the more reason then to clean it up now. I mean, how bright do you have to be to figure that out?
Absolutely. This is just cowardice. You know, the Republic is standing in the balance. There are so many forces, external and internal, trying to tear this great republic apart. It's going to take resolute action. And so I commend President Trump and the red governors like Ron DeSantis. The left doesn't protest in Florida anymore. Ron DeSantis has been very, very tough on them, and we've had a very quiet time here, and that's great. He's shut them down. He's kicked them out of universities. He's done all sorts of stuff. And this is the only kind of approach that's going to be effective. We have a hardcore minority in this country, many of whom are armed, many of whom are backed by Cuba, by China, by Venezuela, by other countries who want to cause mayhem here. And absolutely, it is the president's duty to use whatever is necessary to stop these people depriving everybody of their rights and their freedoms and even their lives at times. So, look, I'm not scared of it. If it's necessary, if it's needed, it should be invoked. I am a bit disappointed that President Trump hasn't invoked it in the past when he could have. It could have saved us a lot of grief. Mm-hmm. But I think he's at the end of his patience with these people. We've seen attacks on ICE, assassination attempts. We've seen the assassination of Charlie Kirk. We've seen murders in our streets, politically motivated murders. Enough is enough.
Tell me where you think we're going with civil war. The governor of Illinois said yesterday, we played it, that the right wants a redo on civil war. Where do you think we're going? That was the mayor of Chicago. Mayor of Chicago. Do you think we're headed that way?
Well, that's Brandon Johnson. He's a Marxist, backed by the Marxists. They put him in power. So he's a revolutionary. So he wants to amp up the pressure. So the left keeps talking about civil war, and they want a reaction from the right. That's what they want. They want the right to do something stupid. But look, civil war is distinctly a possibility. And if we get a Democrat president next time, it'll be more than a possibility. But because the Democrats will come hard on their enemies, very, very, very hard. And but civil war can easily be averted.
Working over.
Yep. Sorry.
This is not difficult to stop. We're not at the stage where it's inevitable, but we're at the stage where violence is getting out of control and people are ready to commit greater acts of violence. And we know to a large degree who these people are and who's backing them. Now's the time to take the gloves off, stop with the niceties, stop with the pretense, and do what has to be done to protect the American people. This is not extreme. This is what any president would have done for the last 150 years had they not been so intimidated by the left over the last 40 years to believe that anything you do to crack down on law and order is borderline fascism.
Yeah, that word's being thrown around an awful lot. Now, I don't agree with certain things like the U.S. government buying up percentage of companies and whatnot. I think that's not where we should be doing. We should be using government money to buy up stock in companies and corporations. But there's too many people throwing that word around when it's not applicable. Now, let's go to this. Daily Caller. Chinese government tied network training illegal immigrants to drive big rigs in the U.S. We've already got a problem with the big rigs. I'm getting so many phone calls. I've done shows on this on my 74 terrestrial stations with over-the-road professional drivers calling in, saying when they go into the truck stops, the American truck driver, are the minority. There's so many Middle Eastern truck drivers, and they're running over people. We were the ones that broke the story for American truckers on the number of people being killed that were illegal drivers, and that got picked up after we made it go viral. Then Fox News picked up our leftovers, which they rightly deserve. And then from there, it went global. So now we have not only the the green of the red-green axis. Now we have the red. So apparently the red-green axis is taking control of America's trucking. Oh, I don't know what could possibly go wrong with that. Maybe a big shutdown and stopping our just-in-time inventory and the food getting to our grocery stores, using those as massive weapons. I don't know. I mean, let your imagination run wild. That's the problem. We don't have enough people that have an imagination to understand what enemies will do. We sit here as Christians thinking about all the things that we don't do because we're Christians and believe in a Christian worldview and biblical ethics. And I think that stops us sometimes from understanding how evil certain people are and what they will actually do because we don't think that way. And therefore, we're not imaginative, and therefore we don't prepare, and we get caught flat-footed. Well, we never thought they would do that. Yeah, I bet you never saw October 7th coming, many Americans, and that they would cut off the feet of babies and put them in ovens and gang rape women and then shoot them in the head and burn them alive. I bet most Americans never saw that. But you and I and Annie Cyrus and all the others that have been covering this topic, we knew exactly what they would do. It's in their books, the Quran and the Hadiths. So Americans, think about this. What does it mean when the red Marxist and the green, the Islamists, are now becoming dominant truck drivers on America's interstates? What's that mean, Trevor?
Well, look, and you're absolutely right, Brannon. See, the biggest problem we have and you've had over the last many years is when you point out evil, it's so far out of the imagination of so many Americans, they tend to dismiss it. Just like the Jews in Germany before World War II said, no, Hitler doesn't really mean it. No, he wrote about it in his book, but no, this will just pass. It's not going to happen. Well, at least it will happen if you don't prepare. God has a way of punishing people who aren't discerning, who aren't wise, who aren't brave enough to confront realities. So look, what trucking networks, okay, you're right. They can bring our supply chains to a halt. Already the Democratic Socialists of America have been organizing in the big warehouses of the Inland Empire and the ports of Long Beach, for instance, to shut those down when they need to. But it also is a great way to transport soldiers or troops around the country. It's a great way to import illegals, to supply weapons, to ship drugs, to ship toxins, to ship atomic weapons if necessary. If I wanted, imagine a World War II if the Nazis controlled America's transport system. How do you think we would have gone on that war? You think there might have been a few incidents on American soil? Or you don't let your enemy control your infrastructure or your flows of commerce or your military preparedness, any of this. Trucks can be turned into truck bombs. They can smash their way into military bases, into civic buildings. Yeah, look, there's only one reason the Chinese would be doing this, to hurt America. That's the only reason. Everything they do is to hurt America. Yes, they make money in the process, but it's to hurt America. That's the number one purpose for being here.
Let's talk about Venezuela. 10 reasons the U.S. can't afford to ignore Venezuela anymore. Now, again, you go back into our vault and you will see, going back to like 2008, 9, 10, somewhere in there, I was talking about the potential of missiles in Venezuela, northern Venezuela, Caracas, as Iran's been flying a flight in there regularly. This new article over at PJ Media, it's a national security issue. Venezuela, they're in our backyard. I remember the leader of Southcom saying, China's in our backyard, and they were pointing to Venezuela. They're in our backyard, okay? So this is becoming a bigger deal. They're running drug cartels and narco-drug terrorism, and then you've got mass migration. Then they go on to mention geopolitical competition, countering anti-U.S. alliance, regional stability, energy and oil, strategic trade partnership, impact on U.S. business and investments, humanitarian aspect, improved environmental health, and that's their 10 reasons. Now, I don't know if all of those 10 would, in my book, fall into a reason to do what we're doing in Venezuela, but certainly some of them would. If I were the commander in chief, I'd be very concerned with the fact you have China, Hezbollah, Iran in Venezuela building what I think are missile sites.
Yes. There's a whole mountain that's hollowed out by Caracas. There's a whole
So you agree with
mountain.
me then? Because most people, when I start talking
Absolutely.
about this, they don't have a clue what I'm talking about. So you're
Yeah.
telling me you actually know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, there's a whole mountain just outside Caracas. There are bases built there, a whole mountain that's believed to hold missile silos. You know, and that's not far. Plus, they've got bases, the enemy's got bases in Nicaragua and Mexico. It's not just Venezuela. So, yeah, look, Venezuela is absolutely a threat. You know, Maduro just emptied his mental hospitals and his prisons to send thousands and thousands of absolutely vile human beings into our country when Biden had his border wide open. Venezuela is a well-known conduit for the drugs that ravage the American population. And the Freedom Road Socialist Organization, the pro-Chinese communist group that basically did the George Floyd riots and the recent LA riots, regularly send delegations to Venezuela and meet with Venezuelan diplomats in this country. And by the way, why are any Venezuelan diplomats still allowed to be in this country? Because they're out in Chicago now working with the radicals. So yeah, Venezuela is a massive threat. It's a surrogate for both Russia and China. As I said, they have a big hollowed out mountain outside Caracas, which almost certainly has missiles in it pointed at this country.
That's 1,264 miles as the crow flies, Miami, which is a massive, massive population base, not to mention all the critical military infrastructure in Florida.
In Tampa, MacDill Air Base, Central Command. You could get a missile from Venezuela probably into Florida in 20 minutes, 30, probably less.
Here's an article from National Interest. This was just August of this year. Donald Trump can stop the next Cuban Missile Crisis. And again, that's exactly what we were talking about 2009, 2010 on my radio show. Will Venezuela be our next Cuban Missile Crisis hot point? And people thought, a lot of people were, again, when I bring this up, most people can't keep up with me on this conversation because they've never heard of it. They've never talked about it. They're not aware that we actually have a U.S. representative from Florida who has gone on national television warning she believes Russia has already placed some weaponry there. Not to mention, what is Iran doing with regular flights into Venezuela?
Yeah, look, it's a revolutionary base controlled by someone who hates America. Look, I was talking to a guy the other day who interviewed a general who defected when Chavez was in control. And he said Chavez was not a populist. He was a hardcore Marxist-Leninist who dreamed of invading and destroying America. That's under Chavez, with Russian and Chinese help. And as I said, they are also in Mexico. They're also massive base in Cuba. They're in Nicaragua and several other Latin American countries. And of course, they have lots of people here waiting to go too. So then, this is the confluence of the external enemies are backing the internal enemies. You imagine if we get in a shooting match with Venezuela or China. Do you think the Venezuelans and the Hezbollah and the Hamas here are going to sit on their knees or go to Disneyland? Or do you think they're going to start blowing up bridges and assassinating public officials and attacking military bases? What do you think they might do?
Here we go. September 25th, 2025. Venezuela deploys Mach 3 anti-ship missile fighters in bold U.S. Navy showdown. In addition to this, Trevor, we have this president of Mexico. I mean, she's talking about throwing people in jail for making fun of politicians. Her biggest trading partner is China, is it not?
Yeah, well, she is a communist. Claudia Sheinbaum is a communist, as was AMLO before her. You know, they're both members of not the Shanghai Cooperation, the Sao Paulo Forum, which is an alliance of 200 Latin American communist and terrorist parties that was set up by Fidel Castro and Lula of Brazil to, in their words, to restore for communism in Latin America what was lost in Eastern Europe. And Scheinbaum's party is part of that. You know, we've got a communist government on our border. And I'm not talking about Canada either. I'm talking about Mexico.
Yeah.
So Canada's leader isn't far off that either, to be honest. But, you know, we have a communist government allied to both the Russians and the Chinese and the Cubans on our border, and we're still allowing transborder commerce. We're still allowing trucks to cross that border, and illegals are still coming across, though greatly lessened, thankfully. You know, look, we've got to wake up to the national security threats out there. We've got war looming in Eastern Europe. We've got war could break out, big war could break out any time in the Middle East. Forget this peace deal with Hamas. And war could break out in the Far East at any time. And you can guarantee if any of those wars get really hot, you can guarantee that we will see trouble, big trouble within our borders. All of those countries, enemy nations, have their agents here now waiting for the day.
Did you know, Trevor, I didn't know till yesterday, that there's a movie coming out called One Battle After Another? I've heard of the movie, yeah.
Leonardo,
what is his name? Leonardo DiCaprio?
DiCaprio, yeah.
And you know what it's about? Apparently it's about revolutionaries that start breaking illegal immigrants out of ICE facilities, etc., in the U.S. I'm not going to play the audio, Logan. I'm just going to play the video of it, if you want to throw that up there. But as you watch this thing, what it reminds me of is like a movie glorifying the Weather Underground.
Exactly. That's exactly right. To glorify left-wing, hardcore revolutionaries, basically defying the federal government. And this is designed for all these young, stupid kids out there who have been trained to think that the Republicans are Nazis and fascists and that they're part of the underground and they can be good progressive heroes by doing what these idiots are doing. I didn't know that was the theme of the movie. I know the movie was coming out, but I didn't know that was the theme. But that does not surprise me at all. And the fact that Leonardo is playing a lead role, given his political leanings, it's not surprising.
Mm-hmm. What do you say to people that say that our thinking is stuck in the 1980s?
Well, I'd say my thinking is stuck in 2,000 years of Western history. So it does not 1980s. It goes way back beyond that. You defend your nation. You have borders. If you look at the Old Testament, you know, it was a national security blueprint. What happened to the Israelites when they forgot to put a border around their cities? You know, this is defending your country. There is an evil empire building out there. There is Rocket Boy, there is the mullahs, there is Putin, there is Xi Jinping, all of whom are hostile to this country, all of whom are sponsoring bad guys in this country already, and all of whom are cooperating together with one target in mind, that's to bring down the destruction of the United States. This is just reality. If you watch Fox News, you won't know that. If you watch CNN, you certainly won't know it. But maybe if you watch shows like this, you'll have some glimpse of it.
Mm-hmm. What do you say that Putin just wants to be left alone? I mean, I do know that China and Iran and North Korea seem awfully aggressive. They are definitely more aggressive than Putin, though, right?
No. Look, Putin just did the Moscow 2050 conference convened by Lavrov. We have the document that came from that conference. Putin says our goal is all of Central Europe and Eastern Europe under our control.
He said that. He said that.
Yeah, this is in the document. This is the Russian foreign policy goal in Moscow from the Moscow 2050 conference, which was held about 3 months ago in Moscow. Elon Musk's was there. Elon Musk's father was there, convened by Lavrov. All of Europe, all of Central Europe, all of the Middle East, all of the Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, large parts of Africa, and large parts of Latin America. That's our goal, says Putin.
So you're saying that's in their document. It's in black and white. So why do people? Why do they not know about it? And then when they hear it, why do they scoff at it?
Well, because they tell lies. You know, a criminal doesn't tell you what he's going to do to you before he does it. He wants to deceive you. He wants to allay your suspicions. He wants to calm your fears. You know, Putin told us he wasn't going to invade Ukraine. Well, really? Everybody knew he was going to, but he said, no, I don't want to invade Ukraine. Well, he's already now threatening to invade the Baltics. All the Baltic states are getting ready for invasion at any time. So is Poland. But no, he just wants to stay within his borders, right? This is absolute garbage. They write about this. This is their military doctrine. They want all of Europe, and China gets us. That's the division of labor. That's the big division of labor agreed to by the Soviet Russians and the Chinese well after the collapse of the Soviet Union. Russia gets all of Europe and Canada, and then China gets pretty much all of Asia, Latin America, and the United States.
All right. So in conclusion, we clearly have the setup of foreign enemies all through this country. Are they the ones that are funding a lot of this street rebellion? And if so, are they doing it before or in anticipation of destabilizing our homeland as we see what looks to be World War III on the horizon?
Well, yeah, absolutely. This is setting up America for massive internal insurrection as our enemies encircle us. So if the war starts, we will get bridges blown up, we'll have people assassinated, there'll be pandemics, whatever. But look, some of it is definitely funded by overseas. The Chinese funnel a lot of money in here through the Vancouver real estate market, etc. The Russian mob, which is a branch of the KGB, brings money in. But look, a lot of the revolution in America is funded by the union movement. It's funded by the non-profits. It's funded by government departments. It's funded by local city governments. The left has no shortage of money. You're a leftist activist, you're going to get a union job or a city job or a foundation job. You're going to have a nice fat salary while you spend 24/7 organizing for revolution and destruction. Your Act Blue will be funding you, whatever. Most of the money for the revolution comes from our own taxpayers or our own local governments or our own union fees.
TrevorLoudon.com, TrevorLoudon.com. You'll find his books and resources there. And as always, Trevor, it's great to have your analysis because the battlefield clearly is being prepared. And again, as Lenin said, Lenin died, I think, in 1924, right?
Yes.
And he said, we will take Eastern Europe, Asia, surround the United States, and collapse it from within.
100% correct. And that plan
right?
has
it's happening.
That plan has never wavered under Yeltsin, under Gorbachev, under Putin. That has never wavered because the KGB has been in power all of that time and still is to this day.
Gorbachev went on to form the Green Cross, did he not?
Exactly.
And tell our listening friends what the Green Cross was all about.
Well, the Green Cross was basically, which was headquartered out of Presidium in San Francisco.
Thank you, the Presidio in San Diego.
Mm-hmm. San Diego, sorry. Funded by the US taxpayer, which was basically organizing the green revolution all around the world, the environmental revolution, which is all designed to collapse Western economies.
Yet he was telling us he wanted perestroika, right?
Yeah, well, perestroika was a tool of the KGB to make themselves more efficient and get more money off us.
And it worked.
That's all it was. It did work.
They were able to import all kinds of technology that was dual use and went right toward their military. And they're on 5th and 6th generation technology that we don't even have comparable to yet.
Yeah, and we built it. Just like we built China, just like traitors like Nixon, Kissinger, and scammed us to building up China, because they'll be our friends. They'll be like us. We'll make money together. Look, once a Marxist-Leninist, always a Marxist-Leninist. Putin is a Marxist-Leninist to his core. He's organized 3 communist youth conferences in the last 7 years. One of them.
Can you please say that again? Can you please say that again for those who didn't catch it?
Putin has organized 3 Marxist-Leninist youth conferences in the last 7 years. One in Sochi, Russia in October 2017 to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the Bolshevik Revolution with 30,000 young communists, and 2 more in Moscow last year and the year before. Look, this idea that Putin's a Christian is just garbage. He is a Marxist-Leninist to his bootstraps, and he's working with the Chinese and the Cubans and all the old enemies and the Iranians to do exactly what Stalin and Khrushchev and Brezhnev dreamed of doing, and that's taking down the US once and for all.
Wake up, folks. Wake up. And I know many of you are. You need to share this with your family and friends once it's posted. And I would urge President Trump to use the Insurrection Act in some of these cities, because they have been taken over by hardcore Marxists and the red-green axis. And they got their call to prayer. I mean, in the UK, they're doing their call to prayer, but if you pass out a gospel tract or a Bible, you're going to prison. That's coming to America, folks, where you'll be able to have the call of prayer to a satanic religious system, but you pass out a gospel tract or Bible, you're going to prison. And don't complain. Those of you that are being so weak on this, or if you have family or friends that are being so weak on this, don't let them cry to you when this country falls. Because if we don't clean this up and clean it out now, there will be no republic. TrevorLoudon.com, TrevorLoudon.com. As always, Trevor, thank you.
Always a pleasure, Brannon. Thanks so much for having me, and a big thank you to the audience.
We'll be right back after this break.
News is moving faster than ever, and so are we. Worldview Tube brings you 24/7 live stream coverage, and now, real-time alerts when it matters most. Once you have the Worldview Tube app installed, exit the app and navigate your way to Settings. In Settings, locate the tab labeled Notifications. Select the Notifications tab. Scroll down until you locate the Worldview Tube app icon. Select the tab, and here you can turn on and customize your notification experience for the Worldview Tube app. News doesn't wait, and neither should you. Turn on push notifications to stay informed. Every headline as it happens.
We have a big announcement, folks. It's called Bella Melt. In the first week, you lost 3 pounds on this, right?
That is correct.
Your GLP-1 is a natural hormone that's in every single one of our bodies. And your GLP-1 lets you know if you're full. It's a satiety hormone. So when your GLP is working properly, it does help suppress your appetite as well as reduce those cravings. So what it's going to do best is it's going to reduce your sugar cravings or any other cravings you have in your body. It's going to suppress that appetite. But where Melissa got the most benefit, I think, over the last week was the L-carnitine. The L-carnitine tells your mitochondria, this is where you make, we talked about it before, this is where you produce energy in your cells. It actually tells those mitochondria to burn fat for fuel.
MelissaHowseBG.com just now introducing for the first time Bella Melt with GLP-1 Fast Action.